The internet went crazy when Birdman looked like he fell asleep mid-performance at that Charlotte show, but that clip, that was just the tip of the iceberg. Now new footage has surfaced, showing Birdman straight up begging his own people to keep him alive. If the streets are talking right, what led to this is far darker than anyone expected. Let's break it down. The moment that broke the internet. Yo, there are certain moments in hip-hop history that make everybody stop what they're doing. Moments that have you putting down your phone, pausing your playlist, and asking yourself, nah, did I really just peep what I think I peeped? And in February of 2025, the entire hip-hop community experienced one of those moments when footage surfaced from a Hot Boys reunion concert that had the whole internet going absolutely crazy. The scene was set in New Orleans, the birthplace of Cash Money Records, the city that blessed us with bounce music, the city that Birdman himself helped put on the map and made relevant to the culture. The Hot Boys, Lil Wayne, Juvenile, Turk, and BG, had linked back up for a highly anticipated tour in early 2025, marking one of their first major performances together since the early 2000s. This was supposed to be a celebration, fam. This was supposed to be a victory lap for one of the most influential groups in Southern hip-hop history. Real ones know how much these dudes meant to the game, but what went down on that stage on February 25th, 2025 was anything but a celebration. It was concerning, it was alarming, and it sparked a conversation that the hip-hop community has been low-key scared to have for way too long. When the footage hit the timeline, the internet had one reaction, and they weren't holding back on their assessment of what Birdman's condition appeared to be. Now, before we get deeper into what the footage actually showed, let me put you on game about the man at the center of this whole situation. Brian Christopher Williams, better known as Birdman, Baby, or Stunna, was born on February 15, 1969 in New Orleans, Louisiana. At 56 years old, this man has been through more than most of us could even fathom. He ain't just a rapper. He ain't just a producer. Homie is a whole mogul. He's the co-founder of Cash Money Records, one of the most successful independent hip-hop labels in the history of this game, period. But to really understand why this footage hit so different, you gotta understand where Birdman came from. He grew up in the Magnolia Projects, one of the most treacherous neighborhoods in New Orleans. His mom's passed away when he was only 5 years old. His pops got murked when Birdman was around 12 or 13. He spent 4 to 5 years of his childhood bouncing around foster homes. This is a man who has said publicly that he thought he was going to be dead by 15 because of how deep he was in the street. That's real talk right there. Birdman himself has spoken candidly about how that upbringing molded him, how the penitentiary felt like a second home, and how reading the Bible while locked up completely flipped his whole perspective on life. This is a man who flipped nothing into everything, bruh. Together with his older brother Ronald Slim Williams, Birdman built Cash Money Records from hustling cassettes out of car trunks into a global empire that has generated over 1 billion units sold. He's the one who discovered Lil Wayne when Weezy was just 9 years old. He's the one who helped put Drake and Nicki Minaj on through Young Money Entertainment. He's claimed that those 3 artists alone, Wayne, Drake, and Nicki, generated over $2 billion in revenue for the label. 2 billion, fam. That's generational wealth type numbers. So when footage surfaced of this legendary figure appearing to fall asleep, or worse, in the middle of a live performance, the internet did what the internet does best. It went crazy. Everybody had something to say. The Breakfast Club broke down exactly what the viral video captured. Birdman posted up on stage in the middle of a song, eyes shut, appearing to completely nod off while his squad performed around him. The video footage, captured by fans in the crowd and later amplified by every media outlet imaginable, shows Birdman on stage alongside his day ones during a transitional moment between songs. He's just standing there, not moving at all. His eyes appear to be closed. His head is slightly bowed, and for approximately 17 to 20 seconds, which feels like a whole eternity when you're watching someone you respect potentially struggling, Birdman appears to nod off or enter a state of complete disorientation. It was wild to witness, no cap. What happened next is what truly sent the clip into viral territory and had everybody talking. BG, Christopher Noel Dorsey, the Hot Boys member who had recently touched down after a 13-year bid, peeps that something ain't right. He walks over to Birdman. He gently taps or shakes his shoulder, and Birdman snaps back to attention with a startled expression before mumbling something you can't really hear and getting back into the performance. The Breakfast Club described that exact moment when BG stepped in, walking over to Birdman and nudging him back to consciousness while the show kept going. The reactions came in hot and they were mad divided. The clip blew up within hours of the concert, racking up millions of views across every platform you can think of. On X, formerly known as Twitter, posts from accounts like Daily Loud and Feared Buck shared the video with captions like "Birdman fell asleep during a live performance," getting thousands of likes and reposts. Media outlets like Vibe Magazine and Hip Hop DX covered it extensively. Everybody wanted to weigh in on what they thought was happening. Some fans expressed genuine concern, pointing to Birdman's age and the toll that decades in this cutthroat industry can take on somebody. Others turned it into memes, comparing it to grandpa falling asleep at the family cookout. And then there were those who went to a darker place, speculating about substance use, about health conditions, about whether the man who had demanded respect on his name for so long was now struggling to maintain his own well-being. The streets were talking, for real, but not everybody was ready to assume the worst about the homie. Some of the Breakfast Club hosts pushed back on the drug speculation, arguing that at 56 years old, maybe Birdman just needed some rest after running around on stage night after night putting on for the city. But here's the thing that people weren't really chopping it up about in those initial reactions. This wasn't a one-time thing, fam. Reports from people who pulled up to other tour stops suggested similar moments of fatigue. And in the months that followed, more footage would surface, including an October 2025 clip of Birdman dozing off mid-sentence during a casual street interview in Harlem, New York. Something was clearly going on with one of hip-hop's most important figures, and his closest affiliates, the people who had been rocking with him for decades, were about to step forward with their own explanations. The gang was about to speak on it. The affiliates speak out. In the world of hip-hop, loyalty is everything, bruh. It's the currency that matters more than platinum plaques or Billboard chart positions. It's what separates the real ones from the ones who are just riding the wave. And in the aftermath of that viral footage from New Orleans, Birdman's closest affiliates stepped up to defend their mentor, their boss, and in many ways, their family. That's what real ones do. But before we get into what they said, you gotta understand the history that ties these men together, because this ain't just about a viral video. This is about relationships that span decades, relationships that have survived lawsuits and prison bids and public beefs that would have destroyed lesser bonds. These dudes been through it all together. Let's start with BG, the man who was caught on video literally reaching out to check on Birdman in that moment. BG was one of the original Hot Boys members, signed to Cash Money back in the late 1990s. His relationship with Birdman has been one of the most layered in hip-hop history, marked by early success, a fallout that led to diss tracks, a 13-year prison bid that kept him locked up from 2009 to 2023, and then a strong reconciliation when he finally touched back down. When BG got released in September 2023, Birdman personally pulled up to greet him, signaling a renewed brotherhood. By 2024 and 2025, they were actively cooking up new music and performing together on the Hot Boys reunion tour. So when BG peeped his mentor appearing to struggle on that stage, his reaction wasn't about creating a viral moment. It was about protecting someone he genuinely cares about. That's hood love right there. And in the interviews that followed, BG made it his mission to set the record straight and clear his boy's name. In a March 2025 interview with XXL magazine, BG clarified that Birdman was not asleep at all. According to BG, what the cameras captured was simply Birdman reading the teleprompter at an unfortunate angle. He broke down how they had song sheets and teleprompters set up for the performance, and Birdman got caught looking down at the wrong moment while wearing glasses that made it hard for him to see clearly under the stage lights. Simple as that. The conversation around who could actually explain what happened, coming back to the people who were right there on stage, and Turk's name kept coming up as someone who witnessed everything firsthand and could vouch for what really went down. But perhaps the most telling detail in BG's explanation was how the Hot Boys themselves reacted to the footage before it went viral. According to him, the squad had a good laugh about it for a week amongst themselves before the internet got hold of it and turned it into something sinister. They joked with each other. They clowned Birdman about it. It was, in their eyes, nothing more than a funny mishap that happens during live performances when you're out there grinding night after night. On the May 3rd, 2025 episode of the Drink Champs podcast, BG elaborated further on the situation. He reiterated that they'd all laughed about it together, and then he addressed the drug rumors head on with a statement that left no room for interpretation. Stunna ain't never did no hard drugs. He always been strictly about the bag. That phrase, strictly about the bag, speaks volumes about how the people closest to Birdman view him. This is a man whose entire identity is built around business, around getting money, around building an empire from nothing. The idea that he would jeopardize all that through substance abuse doesn't line up with the person they know. That ain't his character, feel me? Turk, another Hot Boys member, offered his own perspective in a March 2025 interview. His approach was more philosophical, dismissing the incident as just one of those different little moments that happen in their chaotic world. He talked about how performers constantly have to look down to check cues, to see what's coming up next in the set list, to coordinate with their team. And he made a point that resonated with anyone who understands how the media gets down. They gonna always turn something into something that ain't. The blogs stay twisting stuff. That's just how it goes. goes. Despite all the explanations from his affiliates, the hosts acknowledged that nobody could say for certain what caused that moment, whether it was simply age catching up with a man in his mid-50s, or something more serious that needed attention. Then came Juvenile's contribution to the narrative. In a July 31st, 2025 radio interview on Detroit's 97.9 WJLB while promoting the Cash Money Millionaire's 30th anniversary tour, Juvenile directly refuted the falling asleep narrative. He explained that the song sheet was right there, that they all took a little break looking down, and that Birdman's glasses made it hard for him to see clearly. Most importantly, Juvie pointed out that if you watch the whole tape, not just the clip that went viral, you'd peep him and BG doing the exact same thing. It's a crucial point that often gets lost in these viral moments, fam. Context matters. A 17-second clip can tell any story you want it to tell, but the people who were actually there, who experienced the full performance, saw something entirely different than what the internet constructed from fragments. That's just facts. But let's keep it a buck here. The affiliates' explanations, as unified as they were, didn't completely satisfy the speculation, because there's a pattern that people have noticed, and patterns are hard to explain away with teleprompters and song sheets. The streets were still talking. In October 2025, more footage surfaced of Birdman appearing to doze off mid-sentence during a street interview in Harlem. He was chopping it up about Cash Money's legacy when he paused abruptly, seeming to lose his train of thought completely before resuming. There were similar reports from a September 2025 podcast appearance. Each incident taken by itself could be explained, but together they formed a pattern that concerned fans couldn't just ignore no more. Social media speculation went wild with rumors and speculations. The debate over whether 56 is actually old enough to justify falling asleep on stage became a whole point of contention, with some arguing that age was no excuse for what people witnessed. And there's something else worth considering here. Birdman has survived things that would have destroyed most people out here. He survived his mom's passing when he was only 5. He survived his pops getting murked when he was barely a teenager. He survived years in the streets of New Orleans when violence was an everyday reality. He's reportedly survived multiple near-death experiences, including getting shot in the 1990s. This is a man who has earned the right to be tired. Real talk. But the conversation sparked by that viral footage goes beyond just Birdman. It's about how we treat our hip-hop elders. It's about what happens when the people who built this culture start to age. And it's about the complicated legacy of a man who has given so much to this industry, while also taking so much from the artists who helped build his empire. It's a whole conversation that needed to happen. The complex legacy of Stunna. To really understand why the conversation around Birdman's health has generated such intense reactions, both concerned and critical, you gotta understand the full scope of his legacy. Because Birdman ain't a simple figure, fam. He's not just a hero or just a villain. He's both simultaneously, depending on who you ask and when you ask them. That's just the reality of it. Cash Money Records was founded in 1991 by Birdman and his brother Slim with basically nothing. They started by hustling CDs and t-shirts from car trunks in housing projects across New Orleans and the South. They signed local bounce acts, brought in producer Manny Fresh, and began building something that nobody outside of New Orleans believed could actually work, but they made it happen through pure hustle. Birdman has explained that starting Cash Money was entirely his vision, a way to leave his past behind and channel all the energy he'd been putting into the streets into something legitimate that could actually last. The pivotal moment came in March 1998 when Cash Money secured a groundbreaking $30 million pressing and distribution deal with Universal Records. But here's what made that deal legendary. Birdman and Slim negotiated to retain 85% ownership of their masters, royalties, and publishing. This was unprecedented for an independent label, and it would become the foundation of their wealth for decades to come. That's boss moves right there. What followed was an explosion of success that changed the game forever. Juvenile's 400 Degrees went 4x platinum in 1998. Hot Boy's Guerrilla Warfare hit platinum in 1999. BG's Chopper City in the Ghetto introduced the term bling bling to the whole world. And a young Lil Wayne was emerging as one of the most talented rappers hip-hop had ever seen. Cash Money was running the game. When it comes to his accomplishments in the music industry, Birdman has never been shy about declaring that nobody, not Diddy, not Jay-Z, not anybody, has achieved more than him. He puts that on everything. But for every story of Cash Money's success, there's a corresponding story of financial beef. The label has a long-standing reputation for conflicts with its artists over unpaid royalties, advances, and accounting transparency. This pattern dates back to the label's early years and has affected nearly every major act on the roster. The business side of things been messy, no cap. Juvenile bounced in 2001 citing royalty shortfalls, leading to a lawsuit that settled in 2003. BG dipped in 2001-2002 over financial disputes. Turk sued in 2015 for $1.3 million in unpaid royalties. Manny Fresh left in 2005 citing royalty and credit issues. The list goes on and on, fam. And then there's the most significant beef of all, the one with Lil Wayne, the artist Birdman has consistently referred to as his son. This one was different because it was personal. In January 2015, Lil Wayne filed a $51 million lawsuit against Cash Money Records and Birdman personally. The claims were explosive: breach of contract for delaying the Carter 5, failure to pay an $8 million advance, withholding royalties, and improperly registering copyrights solely under Cash Money's name. Wayne was fed up and he let it be known. At the time, TMZ reported that it looked like the beef might finally be squashed after Wayne and Birdman were spotted together publicly, hugging and appearing to reconcile. But the legal drama was just the tip of the iceberg, fam. In July 2015, an indictment related to a shooting at Lil Wayne's tour bus named Birdman and Young Thug as unindicted co-conspirators in what was alleged to be a plot to harm Wayne. Phone records allegedly showed calls between the shooter's associate and phones registered to Birdman immediately after the incident. Neither Birdman nor Young Thug was ever charged, and Birdman denied any involvement, but the streets definitely remembered that whole situation. Birdman himself has addressed how he handles disrespect during his infamous Breakfast Club appearance, explaining that when someone plays with his name, he gotta see them face to face and let them know directly what it is. The father-son relationship between Birdman and Wayne eventually healed, though. They settled the lawsuit in June 2018, reportedly for somewhere between $10 to $20 million, plus rights to The Carter V. Public reconciliations followed, including on-stage hugs and joint appearances. The family was back together. By 2023, Wayne was welcoming Birdman onto his Young Money radio show with all the love and respect of a son, introducing his father to the world. But here's what makes the viral footage from 2025 so significant in the context of Birdman's legacy. It humanizes someone who has spent decades projecting invincibility. This is a man who has built his entire image around being untouchable. The guy with 100 bands in his bag at all times. The guy who doesn't go to banks because regular banks can't hold his kind of bread. The guy who bought everyone in his project a whip just because he could. That's the image he's cultivated. When asked about what frustrates him most about the music industry, Birdman has always pointed to the fakeness and the way people trip over petty issues when there's so much bread to be made. And yet, there he was, on a stage in New Orleans, being gently shaken awake by one of his artists. It's a moment of vulnerability that strips away all the bravado and reveals something fundamentally human about him. His personal life has reflected similar complexities. His relationship with R&B icon Toni Braxton evolved from a long friendship into an on-again, off-again romance that culminated in a secret marriage in August 2024. Just 2 days after the wedding, Braxton filed for divorce, citing the marriage as irretrievably broken. But then, in January 2025, she dismissed the petition, with Birdman signing off, leaving them legally married, but with an unclear romantic status. It's complicated, to say the least. Fat Joe and Jadakiss discussed the situation on their show, with Fat Joe sharing what he'd heard about the marriage lasting only 2 weeks before Braxton filed for divorce and allegedly received a massive bag in the settlement. His business ventures beyond music have had mixed results. His net worth is estimated around $150–160 million in 2025, built primarily on music catalog ownership and streaming royalties. He's invested in real estate, including a Miami Beach mansion that faced foreclosure threats in 2017–2019 before being resolved. He launched a clothing line that generated hundreds of thousands of dollars, but his oil and gas venture, Bronald Oil and Gas LLC, was exposed as having no actual drilling permits or operations. Later reports suggested he lost millions to a con artist. Even bosses take L's sometimes. So what does all of this mean? What's the takeaway from a viral video of a hip-hop legend appearing to need help from his affiliates on stage? Perhaps it's this: Birdman represents something profound about hip-hop's evolution as a culture. He's one of the first generation of hip-hop moguls who are now entering their late 50s and beyond. We're watching, in real time, what happens when the architects of this culture start to age, and we don't have a roadmap for it. This is uncharted territory, fam. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.